Amazing. Let's go back to something you said, and you said you had the highest test scores in your district.
Yes, sir.
Okay, call me William, please. Okay.
Yes, William.
Oh, thank you. So, what would you attribute that to? Because uh, all all teachers aren't a monolith. Teachers tend to teach differently. Each teacher that we've had, they have a different style of teaching. What would you attribute to you obtaining that level of success?
I can definitely attribute that level of success to God. I believe that
There it
He
is.
is my source and He is the only reason why I'm able to do what I do. And I also attribute that level of success to building my own network of people, of educators that help support me, to help build and help guide and help give me strategies to help us, to help, develop me in those areas so that I can have the greatest impact. As far as like my teaching style, I don't even know if I can give it like a label. I guess I'm kind of like mixed with a little bit of old school firmness and discipline and order and structure.
Hmm.
And then I know the pedagogy of the 21st century learner. And so just being well aware of how students learn, brain research, and things of that nature, and constantly going to professional development to develop and to add to my toolbox, I believe that has developed me and aided me into being the consummate educator that I am, and also knowing how Black and Brown students learn from an Afrocentric concept and perspective. When you know how our students learn, then you are able to help give them access into learning.
You know, a lot of, and I'm gonna go around the panel. I'm not gonna hog all the questions, guys. Okay, I know I know you have a lot of questions, but I'm so fascinated by this. I'm fascinated by the test scores, the that high mark, because uh, a lot of educators say today, "Oh, these children just won't learn." They, there's no discipline. So how do you maintain? How do you connect with them, and also? Uh, and what I'm hearing is that your students are disciplined in your class.
They better be, because 311, it don't I don't play in 311. Um
That's it.
I am, just to give you context, I am 5'1" and a half, maybe 120 pounds,
Uh
give or
huh.
take.
Uh huh.
My eldest child attends Morehouse. My youngest child is dually enrolled at ECSU in the aviation program. And first of all, I'm a parent. And so I don't play with people's children. All 74 students that I will teach and whose lives I will touch and transform, I'm responsible for them. I'm the teacher of record. So meaning the teacher of record, that means that my name, as Kiana Angel Daniels, as a Daniels, I bring the spirit of excellence because that's what my people, and I'm a Dobson, those that my bloodline has contributed to my makeup. So the fact that I'm a teacher of record means that I'm responsible for you. So everything that I have to teach and be an example for 180 days will conform to the spirit that I bring to that classroom. And so you can come in with whatever you're coming in with, but when you come over the threshold of 311, you are going to shift your perspective. Your spirit is going to shift because it's a safe place for learning. And I start out with building rapport. You have to build rapport. You have to be a safe place for students to even respect you, and you cannot embarrass them, but you have to let them know that you really care about them, that you mean business, as the kids say nowadays, stand on business. And that's what I do. I stand on business. I'm very clear about my expectations. I
Mm-hmm.
show that I show students and I demonstrate for them that I follow school and district policies. I show them, I give them the manual, and I teach durable skills, meaning I teach students how to prepare themselves to be able to live productive and viable lives as a citizen of the United States. So when you leave me, you're going to be better than when you walked in that door on day one.
That is outstanding. I'm not, like I said, I'm gonna go to Sabura next because I know she is passionate. She is passionate about education, and then we'll go to Tanisha, Tiffany, Robert, then Clayton, if that's okay. We're going in that order. Is that okay? And you
That's
guys
fine.
go on and ask because wow, I can't believe this. Well, at least we have 45 whole minutes left. But this is going. I love it. I love it. Sabura, I'm
Yeah.
sure you have some comments and or questions.
Well, of course, I love it because that's what I do. I'm just not in maybe always in that traditional in the classroom because you have to know your fit. But my question for you is, how do you particularly get past mostly what I notice, but I'm in North Carolina in or like near Charlotte. So I know a lot of it is cookie cutter. So they want you to everybody to walk that straight line. Everybody's supposed to learn the same, which we already know they do not. So how do you bypass that in the system, or the system where you are is not the same? Do you understand my question?
So if I understand your question, I believe you're asking me, how do I deal with the expectations that are given from the state and this and the district in relationship to the reality of what is coming to me as far as the students?
That is correct.
Okay, cool. Um, so I'm very clear about the state and the district expectations. And so up front, day one, I am communicating with students, especially like I've stated, I've taught a tested subject for almost 3 years, but I'm also transitioning out of my role and going to another district right now. So they
Mhm.
have given me English one, which are just freshmen. So what I've done over the last 3 years is I've been very, very candid with my students. I have had conversations about, hey, this is a very serious class. At the end of this class, you are expected to take a state test. I inform them of what the specs are. I give them the question stems. And so really my whole process is letting them know upfront what the expectations are. Like I ran down the specs for y'all. It's a 4-hour test with 60 questions, with 3 2-minute breaks, with four constructed responses. And I really just I really explicitly I push that. I let them know. I let their parents know. I communicate with them. And I also look at their data. If you are an educator, the details the details are in the data. So we have something called EVOS data. The EVOS data looks at the historical information of the students' testing history. And so what I do is I have one-on-one conversations with all of my students, and I show them what the state projects. The state makes a projection about where they are and gives them a particular percentile and ascribes a number to them and says what they believe they'll make on this particular test. And I'll show them that. And I'll say, I'm a highly qualified teacher. They gave me you because I'm the best and because you're the best. And I'm supposed to bring the best out of you. And you can learn. What you've done up until this moment on prior tests does not matter. The responsibility of me growing you is on me and it's on you. And we're in relationship. So I talk to them. I'm always bringing in those conversations about relationship and how to navigate, and say I teach them social emotional learning. That's vitally important. You're going to be frustrated. You're not going to like me. I am your teacher, but I'm also your coach. And as your coach, I'm going to walk alongside you. But these are my expectations. In this classroom, it's not a got you. You never have to guess. I have anchor charts here. I have built classroom community. So you have partners where you learn to collaborate and you can use your resources. Everything that I'm going to teach you is going to be in the text, because the text is the main thing that you're going to have to learn how to refer to. So I kind of build that kind of culture. Hopefully I answered your question.
Not really.
I
Mine,
did.
yeah, no, that was
No.
lovely. That was wonderful. I have no problem. I mean, like I say, I love which how you motivate your students. What I'm saying is, a lot of times the school principal, the district is not aligned with a teaching style. So that maybe that's not a problem when you are. You know what I'm saying? Like they're okay or on board with what you bring to the table and how you bring it to the students.
Are you talking about politics, more of the politics of
No,
the system?
no, it's teaching style is because they use certain curriculums. You need to teach it this way. I didn't see
Okay.
it. I haven't been a teacher, but I'm a TA, was a TA.
Oh,
I've
okay.
been a,
So,
you know, I'm saying, so I've been in the system in various roles. So I
Mhm.
know that they have a certain way they want the lesson plans to go. And a lot of times, um, if you bringing it a different way and being creative, kind of, sometimes that just don't go coincide with what they want.
okay, so my district has something called UPOs, and the UPOs are unit planner organizers, and that is our curriculum. So our curriculum is already set.
Mhm.
They tell us, they suggest to us what we they would like for us to teach. So we already know if we're in North Carolina, we have Common Core state standards. Their 9 and 10 standards are the same. Now, here is hopefully where I'll actually answer your question. I work at a school where my admin and we're opportunity culture. So my school is a Title I school. They have hired MCL and coaches who are high impact teachers who work with the tested subject areas. And those MCLs help support the tested subject areas. And my principal does not mind allowing us to deviate from the traditional UPO. And so that's where I'm able to bring in those high quality texts that actually intrigue students. But prior to having MCL coaches, I was still able to use the curriculum and utilize the methods that I knew were tried and true. Because when they hired me, I said, I come in with data. I have what it takes to get these students to grow. And so I have the freedom to be able to teach in the style that I want to teach, use the activities that I would like to
Right.
use. And it's important that you get students up. We do gallery walks. We are constantly we're doing silent walks. We're looking at different texts. I mean, today we looked at we real cool today. That was a Gwendolyn Brooks poem, which was actually in the UPO. So I know that there's not a lot of times of where there's equity of seeing our faces within curriculum. But as aforementioned, I have lots of Black and Brown students. And so my principal does give us the freedom to be able to bring text and to bring our style into the classroom.
And that was it. On point. You go. That was good.
Thank you. Sister Tanisha?
Like, I don't know what to say after this. I mean, that was like really, really detailed. But you know what? You remind me of my teacher that I had. Her name was Sheba Loesch. I was actually in advanced English, and she basically just instilled and just was driven to like basically make us learn every single thing when it came to the English structure. But I did have a question. What's your thoughts about teaching adults? Because now, we're learning how to do like shorthand with the texting, and we just like we lost touch as far as like learning the correct way to do, grammatical context as far as like when it comes to the English language and just learning English all the way together, even to writing the paper as well. So what's your thoughts about teaching adults that have
So
actually
that's
the loop?
go ahead.
Yeah.
That's a great question. So, since COVID, I have seen that there has been a great deficit with the traditional age students who are coming in to the college level. They are not familiar with MLA. And when I was growing up, we learned MLA as early as 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. Especially in high school, we were already exposed to MLA handbook, which provides the rule for scholastic writing. And depending on the field that you're in, at the collegiate level, you write according to the handbook of your field. So if you're in social sciences, you're doing APA. If you're writing in a religious context, you're using Kate Turabian Chicago.
Yeah.
And so what I have found is there's a gap and a chasm with the traditional students, as well as gap and chasms with the non-traditional students. So with both of those, it really takes knowing what you do, knowing how to do what you do well as an instructor, and assessing the students that you have in each semester that you have, and just explicitly teaching them what you need them to know, and working one-on-one with them in the writing and tutoring sessions will also make up for those grammatical those errors in grammar. Because a lot of times when people you can really figure out when you assess a student in the younger grades, technically kindergarten through maybe second, third grade, you're doing a lot of data with phonemic awareness, with linguistic things. And so those gaps, that if they're not closed at that particular age, then you'll get adult students who actually are having difficulty with using subject verb agreement properly, or writing in present tense, or not really having the diction or the vocabulary that they need to have. And so it's still my job to teach them and to give them the tools that they need in order to be successful. But I do see it a lot where non-traditional the older adult students are really having, they're struggling. And so I attribute it to the fact that people aren't reading, and people are literally they're not building vocabulary. And if you're spending at least 30 minutes a day reading, not a post, but actually reading a book, it builds your vocabulary. You see sentence structure. You see how language is used properly. You move from tier 1 words, which is our everyday words, to tier 2 words, which are our academic language, into tier 3, being able to understand the language of a field. And so I think that the more people are able to actually engage and actually have conversations, because people are losing the ability to even hold conversations well or manage their emotions. So I think that, you really see those gaps at the collegiate level as well.
All right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Sister Tiffany.
Hola, sis. How are you?
Can you hear me?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm sorry.
Good, good. I know we have been talking about, you in the teaching field and your love for education. I kind of want to go across the lane here. And you had mentioned early on another field that you're also in. Can you speak more to that particular field
Yes.
outside of education?
Yes. So my other field is I am an itinerant preacher, which means I travel around the world preaching the glorious gospel of Jesus Christ. And I've done that for 20 years. I grew up in church. I'm a preacher's kid. And two things that I know that I'm called to do are preach and teach. And so I've done conferences, convocations, I do workshops, things of that nature. I also forgot to mention I also own a coaching firm which deals with executive coaching. So I deal with executives as well as I coach individuals as well. So yeah, that preaching thing is what I do. I'm a prophet of God. God allows me to see and into people's lives, seeing past, present, and future. I only speak when He tells me to speak. I speak what He tells me to say. I see what He tells me to describe. I hear only what He tells me to hear. And so that's how I operate and navigate in that particular space of my life.
Awesome, awesome. Has there ever been a time where, I don't want to say like the two had crossed paths, where like you had a student to come in the classroom and you could just tell? Because I remember you were saying early on, when your students enter into your room, there's a shift. Like there's automatically going to be like your spirit's going to be lifted by the time they leave from that classroom. Has there ever been a time where not necessarily you say you had to prophesy, but you can tell something about a particular student that you was like, okay, I know I'm gonna have to work with this one a little bit more, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, so definitely. Even in the world just living life, I'm able to discern in the school setting, at the collegiate level, in the church sector. I am able to discern, and I'm able to pick up and scan and see forensically into people's lives, and God gives me that prophetic insight to see how to navigate and strategize to access that particular student. So yes, I'm able to do that, and that those happen oftentimes.
Awesome, awesome. Robert?
Yes, I would say definitely thank you very much, Sister Kiana, for being on the show. And if I might say, you kind of look like a dead ringer from my daughter.
For real? Hi, Dad.
Yes,
It's like, just kidding.
absolutely. but that's basically the idea of, and people just realize Black women, they are beautiful, and they never let's say Black never cracks.
It
That's the
doesn't
thing.
crack.
That's the thing. But definitely thank you for being on the show this evening. And I saw that a couple of things that you're very passionate when it comes down to education, and also the aspect of where you say that you were a preacher and you're a professor. But I would say also probably dive in a little bit about your speaking ability, because you're very eloquent when it comes to your speech. Tell me, tell the viewing audience as well, when was the first time you saw yourself as being a speaker and gaining that skill?
Wow, that's a great question. Um, I think that my oratorical skills were developed and fostered since I've been alive. And the reason why I'm saying it like that is because my parents were very, very intentional about rearing me. They received several prophetic words concerning my birth. They were married 14 years and the doctor said my mother would never be able to be pregnant. And but lo and behold, they met several prophets that say, "Hey, God's going to send you a daughter. She's going to preach the gospel. She's going to be, travel around the world." And here I am, ta-da! And so, my father was very intentional. He was reared in Florence, South Carolina. My mother was raised in Winston Salem, North Carolina, and so they really, really were. And so I sang growing up as a child. So my father consistently like put me in the forefront. So he started to develop and cultivate. My mother made sure that I was in acting classes and I had a myriad of experiences, just being exposed to travel internationally and things of that nature. So they cultivated me in that space based off the simple fact that they had a word about my future. And I think that that deposit that they made to be intentional fostered who I am today and built my oratorical acumen. And so also because I am a small framed woman who appears to look younger than she is, I have had to develop the skill of speaking well so that people don't play with me. And so that
Mhm.
is something that I've had to. I think it's important as a Black woman. For some reason, when we show up in spaces, whether we're shopping or being professional, something about just us showing up kind of provokes people in a sense. And so I have worked hard to be articulate. I've worked hard to build vocabulary. I've worked hard to be able to connect and communicate with people of all walks of life. And hopefully that has answered your question.
Mm.
Yes, definitely. And I want to say that you said from before you stand 5'1", but you really sound like you're 6'2", or you're representing 1969. So I just put it that way.
Yes, yes. I
Uh,
love
I like
that.
that
I love
better.
what you did there.
thank you, thank
That's
you.
called commanding respect.
That's right.
Yes, that's
That's
right.
right. I'm an atmosphere shifter. Before I
She's
even speak, my
definitely
energy speaks.
the command
Say it again.
God.
I love it. I love it. Clayton.
Yes, yes. Well, greetings to all my sisters and my brothers that's online. My name is Clayton, for those that don't know. I do appreciate the educators, the teachers, and I think that I was talking about that earlier about the teachers being underpaid. That's been a big old thing for me because the fact is, first and foremost, my first major was fine arts education to prepare me to be an art teacher. And at that time, I was too young and maybe too immature. But my biggest fault was I was an introvert. I did not like speaking out in front of people. I would have sweaty palms and I would clam up. I had a lot to say, but I would keep it to myself. And not until I went into the military and spent 24 years, God put me in a position where He made me come out of my shell, where I was able to teach and train people. And when William was saying that he was amazed by what you was able to accomplish, sister, when you told me that God was in front, I had no doubts from that point forward. Because like you said, when God is in front of you and clear your path, He has created a great person in you.
Wow.
So and I could see that
Wow.
because you're one of His vessels, and He intend to use you for His purpose. So the amazement of what you're able to accomplish, I have no amazement about that. I know that He's going to do great things with you. uh, the accomplishments that you have made thus far, I'm in awe. And when the sister asked, "Do you teach adults?" I'm sitting back here being schooled right now. So
Oh, wow.
Hey,
I'm like,
yeah.
I'm soaking it up like a sponge. I love it
Wow.
because I don't care if it's a 6-year-old child. If that child has something to say to me, I'm going to listen because out of the mouth of babes, come great things. So
Hmm.
I appreciate what you're doing. I still say the government, whether your state or whether it's a federal mandate, they need to start upping the ante and paying you guys top dollar.
Yes, I agree. I
Well,
definitely agree.
oh, or let's see, let me bring him back.
Uh,
Bring Clayton back. Clayton,
yes, yes.
continue. I had to log you back in. Okay, continue.
Okay. I don't know how much you missed what I said, but I said I don't know if it's a state thing or whether it's going to be federal, but they need to mandate something uh, countrywide or where you are getting paid top salary.
Hmm.
Because
I
first and
agree.
foremost, you have our young adults in your hand. You are pretty much like they said, first responders. So, and that's where they're going to learn first, not first because the parents should be doing that first before they hand them off to you. But you have them for the most of the day. So, am I gone again?
Uh, no, I think you're still there,
She's
but
gone.
okay, I tell you what, and I agree with you 100%. I'm waiting for her to log back in
Yes,
because what a brilliant sister she is. And you're
she
right,
is.
Clayton. And a lot of times they are the first responders. The teachers are because there are a lot of parents out here that are great. Like you take parents like Sabora and Tiffany. I don't know if you have any children, or Tanisha, whether you have children or not. I'm not sure, but I know Sabora. She is excellent, and her passion is education
Yes.
and educating her children. And one thing she said, I remember. If correct me if I'm wrong, Sabora, you started talking to your children while they were in the womb.
Yeah.
Am I
Correct.
correct about that?
Mhm.
And reading to
The
them
sounds in the womb,
sounds.
what I watched, what I listened to, because that definitely impacts your child.
Right, right, right. Oh, with that, Kiana, she's back, and we were
I'm
talking about.
sorry. It's acting
That's
crazy.
okay.
Technology.
It happens. It happens. But that's okay. While you were gone, I was talking about. I agree with Clayton wholeheartedly about how teachers they
Mhm.
take care of our children. A lot of times, there are many, many great parents like Sabora, who's passionate about education, who started talking to their children while they were in the womb, reading to them while they were in the room, playing music, and folks, and that is so important. And I'm just saying, from a layperson, I'm not a doctor or anything like that. I'm not a psychologist, but it makes perfect sense to me.
Yes.
The culture or the atmosphere that you surround your children with is
Yes.
outstanding. And I want to say to you,
And just to piggyback off of that, William, I
go
just
on.
want to give those teachers their flowers while I can, because the fact is,
Absolutely.
you all are making a difference, and I know that you're going to continue doing that. And I think there should be something, I don't know, going up the chain, going up the channel to talk to the president or Congress or the Senate or whoever the uh, the Secretary of Education. Let's give these teachers a major salary, because here in
Mhm.
Chesterfield they have so many openings for teachers. They can't fill those spots, and probably part of because the teacher jobs are not paying the bills,
Mhm.
but they have to
Absolutely.
deal with so much.
Yep.
When they go out there,
Right.
you don't know what they have to deal with once they're in that school building.
Absolutely.
So
And Clayton,
kudos to you educators. I appreciate you.
absolutely. And and to piggyback on that, and today, and I don't know about your situation, Kiana, uh, uh, but a lot of these teachers have to take part of what they earn, part of their salary, to buy supplies. That
Yep.
should never happen.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That should never, ever happen.
Mhm.
If you look at the money that's being appropriated, and then you have to look at again. I'm gonna just step off for a little bit and talk about. That's why it's so important that we not only this election coming up in November, but also look at the local elections. Look at your school boards. Who are you putting on these boards?
Mhm.
Because a lot of these people are on the board for money, recognition, and it's a stepping stone for them to get somewhere else. And they have no idea how the school is supposed to work. They know nothing about budgeting. They know nothing about hiring and firing. They have nothing, no knowledge about curriculum or anything like that. And I've done many shows on this. So you're right, my sister. You should be applauded. I am so happy that you're here with us. As a matter of fact, I think you should have been at the DNC speaking at that on the convention floor as well as you speak. Absolutely,
Well,
because
thank you.
no,
Yeah.
I'm serious about this
Soon come.
because
Soon
we
come.
need educators to come on and talk about what it is because everybody who has a child, most people who have children, I would say most people love their children and they want the best for their children. I believe that.
Mhm.
Okay. And so, yes, uh, it- you're a great orator. There's no question about that. And I have a couple of questions I wanted to, I just want to say, ask you this. You talked about your parents briefly about how they nurtured and also instilled a confidence in you, and they knew something that you were going to be great. And you talk about the difficulty of them even bringing you to into this world. What motivates you to go in the field of teaching? Was it your parents, or was it an event, or was it a teacher that inspired you? Who inspired you to take on this? Because you could have done just about anything.
I think that it was an amalgamation of all of the aforementioned. It was my parents, coupled with my family, coupled with my church family. And there were several English teachers, as well as college professors, that had an indelible impression, that made an indelible impression upon me. One teacher in particular, his name is Storm Foreman and Yanza Bendelli, and she was like my twin. She taught English. She was very petite. People often mistaken us for the same person in when I was in high school. I was a student and she was an actual teacher, and she graduated from Livingstone College, and her cousin was the swing that came to visit her in the classroom. And so
Mm.
she really mentored me and helped build my mind and solidify my identity as a woman who is of African descent in the diaspora. So she really built and made me a historian. By the time I was in the 11th grade and my mother had started going to college at Winston-Salem State University, I was so well versed as a historian and Africana history that I was able to speak at the collegiate level and be invited in to teach several classes at the collegiate level.
Mm.
Initially, my parents thought I was on this Black Power movement and losing my mind. But then when my mom started taking the humanities class, which was mandatory, she started recognizing, oh, this is real information. This is stuff that like is viable through, scholarship. And she was like, my daughter knows this. And so the professors, I met them and they were impressed with me. And I started having that opportunity to speak, which also built into developing that skill set and being able to speak and lecture in front of people. And so Storm Foreman was one teacher. Miss Moye was another English teacher. Dr. Fabe Funge at the collegiate level at A&T State University. He changed my life. I would study voraciously after leaving his class, and I would go study the textbook so much so that I could find the historical dates that were incorrect, and I would go right back to class the next day. And he offered me a job to find the errors in the beginning of the colonial Africana era up until the 1960s, 70s era, and I was able to find those dates because the textbook companies nationally would send him books so that he could look for the errors and the mistakes. But I was finding them as an undergraduate student, and so I had the opportunity to sit under his tutelage and just learn. And so all of that built my capacity to be able to do what I'm doing now. So I'm super thankful for that.
But I also noticed that you speak with passion. And I mentioned earlier, you command respect, and you are so correct. And I want you to touch on the the presence, and but not only the presence, but also the impact that being able to speak correctly and speak with confidence, and you know Why is that so important?
It's invaluable to be able to speak with passion and to speak with confidence. As I don't want to keep deferring to gender, but one of the most educated people in the United States historically is an African American woman. We have more degrees and we have gone to do the scholarship and do the work, but our voices have been muted. And so it's important that as a prophet, the voice is vital. So my voice in
Mm.
every sphere and an area of operation that God has allowed me to walk into has undergirded my ability to speak. So when I speak, the Bible talks about the righteous being bold as a lion. So when I open my mouth, because I know what I'm talking about, I will not cower back. I will not shrink back. And you're gonna have to be pretty daggone convincing to try to deter me from what I have studied and what I know. And it does not mean that I don't have a growth mindset, but when I speak, I have to know what I'm talking about because I'm a woman. So people automatically think when you're in a patriarchal or hegemonic society, you don't know what you're talking about. And the fact that I look like a little kid too definitely um can play into people invalidating what I'm talking about. And so
Mm.
it's important that when I open my mouth, they recognize that, wait, that's not a little girl, but that's a grown woman. And this person
Absolutely.
has intelligence. She knows exactly what she's saying. So that's important to me. And I've instilled that in my blood children and the children that I speak to, because you will command attention when you know what you're saying, when you know how to say what you're saying, when you know how to advocate for yourself, and when you know how to just move in different spaces. And as an African in America, our people have been marginalized. We're still fighting for our voices to be heard. And
That's
so
right.
every time God allows me to wake up and allows my vocal cords to operate to maximum capacity, I'm going to herald and speak and advocate with as much power and authority that runs through my veins that my ancestors could not have the opportunity to do. I'm going to do that.
Right.
Right,
And to
right
be able
on.
to articulate, and anybody else can jump in a second, but be able to articulate and with your voice, being able to speak properly and confidently, you command respect, and you cannot be bullied. You cannot be bullied. I'm
You can get
telling
these hands. And I'm too old for that. So you can get this trigger finger, whichever, however you want it. And I
There it
believe
is.
in him delivering and bringing folks back from the
There it
dead to the
is.
life. So whichever, however you want this, you can get it.
you.
That's
Oh,
it.
oh boy, oh boy, oh boy,
I
oh
like
boy,
that.
oh
I
boy.
like that.
I think she
All right.
should have been an attorney. I think you've been a great attorney.
I
Yeah.
should have been an attorney. I desired to be an attorney. And let me tell you what was
Okay.
hilarious today. One student was super, super disrespectful today.
Hmm.
And it really got to me. And today I vocalized I should have been an attorney and it's not too late. I actually said it yesterday and I
Yeah.
said it today. And I actually used to work in the courtroom as a courtroom clerk. I kept the record. So whenever the judge gave the verdict, I wrote down exactly what
Hmm.
the verdict was. And I never made a mistake. And that's because I listened correctly. So that's another thing. When people try to act like they try to gaslight you, like you're not hearing what you're hearing. I had a whole job where I was supposed to hear correctly and nobody got out of jail early because I did not hear properly. So when people try to play my intellect and my ability to hear and listen, I'm like, you're playing games. I know
Hmm.
how to hear.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Let's see, Tanisha.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't.
You,
We only have 11 minutes with the sister. I don't want to hog the rest of it.
yeah, you always do. It's okay though. It's all right.
No, go on.
But
Whatever you want to
like,
say. Questions,
I just
comments.
I just think she's like it's like discipleship in my opinion. That's what it seems like to me, that she's basically carrying on the Great Commission of God. And you mentioned something about the Sharabian. Did you pick up theology or something? Because that's
Yes.
okay. Yeah, I know about that. That is really they should have a class to teach you how to do the Arabian style, because that is like another foreign language to me, in my opinion. Was it really foreign to you to learn? It's like a book. You're writing a whole, like, bio. I mean, everything. It's what, 4 or 5 pages. You can have a page, 30 pages, and like 5 pages of it is just doing your formatting for Arabian style. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I do agree with you. I have a Master of Divinity from Virginia University of Lynchburg. And so
Okay.
that's where I got my religious degree, and I was required to learn how to write in Kate Arabian. I also started my doctorate of divinity there. So I have like
Okay.
a year and a half left. And
Mhm.
so when you're writing in Kate Arabian Chicago style, it is
Yeah.
very extensive. But what I have found to be helpful and useful for me is I see the similarities between that and APA. And
APA.
so that has made it a lot easier for me in just navigating the thought process and just switching my brain from MLA, because I've had
Mm-hmm.
so many years of that thought process with an MLA. But yeah, I can see the similarities between those.
Yeah, because it burnt my brain out. I was like, oh my gosh, you got to do a comma here, a footnote here, and all. You have to learn how to even cite it in your in your pages, and also in your documents was really tough too. And how you had to format it. I was like, oh my goodness, this is like, I need to go to school for a whole year for this because it was a tough course to take. So I went to Lynchburg too as well, so it was a rough program. So
Wow. You went to VUL?
no, I actually went to Liberty, so I'm saying Lynchburg.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. They're in the same city. So
But
yeah, yeah, definitely.
uh-huh. So yep.
Wow.
Wow.
I heard you speak on if I can get this out before we leave. I heard you speak on inclusivity. What do you do to ensure that? Because I hear, and it's not a problem, but where your background lay is and continues to be, but everybody's not the same. So what do you do to be inclusive?
So to be inclusive, we know that we live in a world where people can identify in the way that they want to identify. We know that culturally people are not seen. And so what I do to provide inclusivity is that I teach people how to find their voices. And so in whether it's the secondary level or the higher ed level or whatever, I have a child, my eldest child identifies and is a part of the LGBTQ plus community. And so inclusivity really matters to me. And I know some people kind of figure like, oh, how do you meander that with your theology? Listen, I did the work when my child was a child. So I really stand on what God said, that when you train them up in the way they should go, when they're old, they won't depart. And so I trust and believe that wholeheartedly. So inclusivity in the academic setting is important. You just respect people. When you respect people and you honor what they how they want to be addressed, and you their voice and their culture, and you bring those things into the classroom, and students are able to see themselves, then that's important. That's where you build relationship, and that's where the real work comes in. Because when it comes to education, it's very fragile. It's like Christianity. So many people have been hurt and traumatized through their various experiences. But when it comes to that educational component, when and inclusivity also means me making a education accessible to students with disabilities. I'm transparent. I have a chronic illness. I have rheumatoid arthritis. I've been on 20 pills a day. I've taken a form of chemo. I've taken a shot, Humira, Enbrel, and Cimzia. Where my shot Cimzia the last time I took my shot Cimzia, it was $20,000 per shot. And I'm so
Whoa.
thankful that He is Jehovah Rapha, the God that heals, that I'm no longer on any medication. But I've learned how to de-stress. I've learned how to get toxic people out of my life, because I know that there's a correlation between toxicity and
Definitely.
health
Sickness.
issues that come. Yeah. So all of those things are all encompassing. I teach the whole
Right.
child, but what's most important is you got to get to the spirit of the individual. When you access their spirit and let them know that they're valuable and that they are something, then that's where the educational magic happens. That's where you tap into the realm of developing an adult and building who they are because of what they brought before them. And it has disillusioned a lot of people. A lot of adults. I teach 70-year-old students. Can you imagine? I'm a young female who is a preacher teaching at a Bible college, and I'm teaching people who, at some point in time in their life, men who have been who are veterans, who grew up in churches where they did not believe in women preachers. But not one time have I had a male student of that age ever come at me sideways or disrespect me. But it was my intellect. My father always taught me something that is invaluable. What he taught me was, he says, a lot of places you'll go will say that women cannot preach because they're looking at what Paul said. He says, but never argue about whether women are called to preach. He says, just preach the gospel, and when you're done, they will know that you are anointed to do what you do. And
Hmm.
I've always taken that with me. In any space that I go into, I'm anointed to do whatever it is that I'm called to do.
Right. And see,
Yeah,
but like
right on.
with the inclusivity question, I wasn't specific because it is a broad thing, but
Sis, I
most
need you to be
people
a lot
go
more
on,
specific with your questions.
yeah, but most people do go automatically to gender kind of issues. And the other one you kind of stayed on was like maybe developmental. But we also have to remember, and I guess that's where I'm saying is that inclusivity when it comes to religion, because that's your
You never
religion.
even
You're
mentioned that to
working with
just
kids,
now.
and most of the
Uh,
time, I see people have a problem with that.
Oh, so whenever it comes to inclusivity with religion, there are laws that regulate what you can say and what you cannot say. So if I'm reading a text that actually there's a text that I like to teach with my 10th graders that's called St. Lucy's Girls School. But the beginning and the preface of that particular text, the epigraph talks about it has a lot of religious undertones. And so what I actually do is there's a relationship between English and history. So what I do is I unpack the religious language that's in the text that will allow students to be able to adequately access that text. I don't have to preach Jesus. I show up, you see Jesus. So I don't have to preach religion. I respect and honor my students who are Islamic. I respect and honor my students who may be Wiccan. I may have students who are Jewish. I may have students who do not believe. But the fact that I show up when you are in 311, the room is already anointed. It's already sanctified. I honor and respect what you have and what you have to do. But at the end of the day, there is a judge and a ruler that super rules all of the above, and I'll stand on it to the day I die. Then when you step into any space that I occupy, you are under the sovereign authority of Christ that lives in me and Christ the hope of glory. And so I honor and respect that. Whatever's in the text, I'll teach it, and there we go. We get results.
That's
That's
right.
it.
And
Amen.
nobody should question.
There you
That's
go,
Nobody.
it.
man. There you go.
Nobody should question your beliefs. We
Yeah.
don't have.
Hmm.
This world has become so judgmental
Hmm.
these days. And I used to go to a church that the a few pastors before. Let's see, who do we leave? Oh, we lost Kiana just for a second. Hey, but guys, I want to thank you so much for a lively and spirited conversation here. This sister right here, you can hear in her voice is power.
Hmm.
Uh, it's not only power, there's confidence, and we need to teach our children that to have confidence in themselves. Parents, we need to have confidence in ourselves so we can teach our children how to have confidence in themselves. Because I'm telling you, with confidence, that's everything. That is really everything. Have confidence in yourself. I was just talking about your sister a little bit, and we can talk about the way you speak. You have confidence in what you're saying, and nobody has any right to judge you. And I recall going to a church I had mentioned before, and the two pastors before, uh, one passed, and then we had another pastor, and he was there for 20 years. Then we have a new one now. The church, my old church, rather, in California, and the previous two pastors. Uh, he would not allow a woman in the pulpit,
Wow.
which I thought was so archaic. And it is really dumb, in my opinion. It is really dumb because I don't know, does the Bible say anything? If you guys believe in the Bible, does it say anything about a woman cannot be a preacher? Did you touch? I know you mentioned that briefly, but does it say anything about a woman cannot be a preacher?
We spread
It
the gospel.
doesn't it doesn't explicitly state those words. And so in that way. So people oftentimes like to use, because of interpretation, there's 5 ways to interpret a text. And so oftentimes people like to use Paul's argument for saying women should be quiet in the church, but what he was really talking about was a business meeting. So here's the real issue. The real
Okay,
issue that I have found is that a lot of preachers who are preaching have not gone through the academy. And so the Bible talks in the New Testament about people perishing for lack of knowledge. Gnosis.
Mhm.
That's what knowledge is in the Greek. It's gnosis. And so the interesting thing is, um, I'm almost like John Henry Clark. I only argue with those people who have, and I'm jacking up his quote. I wish I knew his quote by heart. I'm so old, I can't even remember stuff anymore. But John Henry Clark has he has a wonderful quote that talks about arguing only with your equals. Everyone else I teach is pretty much the gist of what his conversation is. So really, I don't get involved in conversations of arguing theology. People are going to think they're going to believe what they believe. This woman told me last week that the Bible says, come as you are. Now, mind you, as a professor at a college who has a degree in biblical, I have a religious degree. Not only do I teach the Bible, but I am able to teach world religions. You gonna tell me that the Bible says come as you are? No, it doesn't. There's no scripture that explicitly says come as you are. And I said,
Mm,
go ahead and Google it. I'll wait for you to find the scripture. And I waited and I
okay.
waited and I waited and I waited. And she couldn't find the scripture, but she was too pig-headed to recognize that I knew what I was talking about. And so that's the reality. We need preachers to go to the academy and then we can have conversations. And these preachers need to come to the academy because literally the church has been 10, 15, 20 years behind what the world. The church needs to catch up. And we saw that in COVID, that how far the church was behind.
Right.
So you got
Absolutely.
commentaries, the
You know,
commentaries.
I'm going to ask you, can you stay on just for a few more minutes? We have our other guest is, I think he's having trouble logging in. So I want to go
Sure.
around the panel again and let me see if I can contact him and see if I can get him connected. Okay. All right.
Yes.
If you can, sister, we've taken a lot of your time,
It's
and,
okay.
but you've been wonderful. So
Thank you so much.
let's start with Tiffany.
Mhm.
And just go around to Robert Clayton, Sabora, or Tanisha did Sabora. Okay, I'll be back.
Okay, so what is the name of the academy that you're referring to? Because I too am a young minister, and so I'm interested in wanting to know more information.
Okay, so when I in the way that I use the term academy, I was specifically talking about divinity school or going to a religious accredited, and I'm putting heavy emphasis on an accredited university or college that is teaching you how to translate, how to preach, how to exegete, eisegete, knowing hermeneutics, knowing the homiletic spiral, knowing. I'm
Yeah.
talking about a school. So when I say the academy, I'm using tier 3 language. I'm using preacher talk for just to simply say that ministers and preachers and anybody that is in Christendom that teaches, that's in a teaching role, office, or function, should be a part of the academy. They should be enrolled in a higher education class to learn what the actual biblical text is teaching. Because, for example, the Old Testament, we have the Old Testament and the New Testament. You have preachers nowadays that have been preaching 40, 50, 60 years. They don't even know that the first 5 books of the Bible are Hebrew, that it's called the Pentateuch. They don't know that it's the Ketuvim, the Nevi'im, and the writings. They don't know any of that stuff. So it's a real book. So I created a class at my college called Literary Aspects of the Bible. Because before you can look at it as a religious text, I need to help you deconstruct it as a literary text. And so that's the kind of thing the things that I do. And those things right there get me going in teaching people how to access and how to read, because there is a historicity. What I mean by historicity, that every scripture, every character, everything that you read about biblically comes from a specific time and a culture. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to superimpose a 21st century mindset upon a very ancient text. And so not all scripture is to be interpreted literally, but some things are figuratively, and some things are looked at as idiomatic so that we can learn this expressions and the nuances of that text. We should be able to go beyond, okay, this is the 10 commandments, but there are more than 10 commandments. But that's called the Decalogue, where Moses literally wrote on a tablet. Why do you think we swiping on tablets now? I just dropped Revelation right there. Moses, God had the first tablet. He wrote on the tablet and gave us the Decalogue. But there are more than just 10 commandments. The Bible is replete with over 132 commandments that we should follow. And so those are things that make you a better preacher. And especially if you're a woman, you must know what you're talking about. You don't have to ever argue and preach your gender. But nobody can ever argue revelation. They can never argue relationship. And they can never argue with scholarship.
I was talking about
Awesome.
the commentaries. Awesome. I was thinking about the commentaries. I love the commentaries. That's what I was
Oh,
thinking.
absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Good
Come on,
grief. I don't know how I can follow that. You should have followed Senator Raphael Warnock on the DNC last night. Definitely.
Yeah.
Based upon your talk. Oh, goodness. Just lost her, but she'll be back in a moment. But definitely the idea of people tend to have the nuance of being able to say, okay, I know the Bible, but they sort of twist the words around for their own
Yep.
views, their own aspects.
Mm-hmm.
As Sister Kiana had mentioned, as I say, I could probably say reverend or even pastor, the idea is the Bible should be taken as a literal text and understanding that there are commands, there are various different rules to follow, and not in the sense of just saying, oh, I'm going to use it for this aspect here or that aspect there. But I would say that definitely it is important to be able to understand as well the idea of who we are as individuals, and also making sure that each of us are treated in the proper manner. We're all here on earth. We're all here to make sure that we make this world a better place as when we had first arrived here. And I would say that's definitely that Sister Kiana is one who is definitely a force to be able to do it, as with every single one of us here on this line, anybody who's listening out there as well. You want to be able to make this country, this world better than when you had first arrived. The way that you can do it here in America is your vote at the ballot. And we are 77 days away from the 2024 election. So one thing is important, and you better get out to the polls and be able to vote. And it's one thing that we're doing with Groove by Groove and Swing by Swing is basically our collective, which is called Our Voice, Our Vote. And the idea of making sure that people are encouraged to be able to sign up, register to vote, checking your voting status, as well as making sure that you are at the polls. You go to vote or you do early voting. Some states do have early voting, so take that advantage, take that opportunity. And how long is it going to take to cast your vote? 5-10 minutes. But it's definitely going to be important to make sure that you are making sure your voice is heard, making sure your voice is your vote. Your vote is your voice. The two are the same. I definitely encourage that, as well as everybody else here on the call, my brothers, my sisters as well. But the idea is it's important because if there's any other election, if you feel that this is really important at this point in time, it's this one. However, every single election prior to that was important because
this is the world's first dogs to be trained.
Basically formed what we are today. So anything moving forward, you want to be able to make sure that your voice is heard, not just for yourself, but you might have families that are depending upon your vote. You might have children who are dependent upon your vote. You might have generations who don't vote in this election, but will be affected by that vote. So important that make sure that you understand all the platforms, read everything from top to bottom, and vote from the top of the ballot to the bottom of the ballot. Everything is important.
Wow.
So I just want to say that because it is true. Everything that comes from policies and procedures really starts at the bottom level.
It does. Sure
Moves
does.
its way up to the top. So that's all I have to say about that. That's my $19.62, as I like to say.
And we appreciate that, Brother Robert. Now, Kiana, I'm going to ask you one more favor because I really want you to meet our next guest, Mr. Everett Shaw. And before we bring him on, I want to do something a little special here because it is special. And I think it fits right into